Topping today's news, the government spending big bucks on repatriation exercises. The aviation minister clears up allegations of missing Bahamas Air money in Haiti. Police need your help in identifying one of Sunday's shooting victims, and changes in getting your vehicle licensed and inspected coming soon to road traffic. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jcn Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Nearly $70,000 has been spent so far this year by the government to repatriate illegal migrants. Minister of Immigration and Labor Keith Bell revealing in Parliament on Monday that some 570 migrants were repatriated in January alone. The Department of Immigration has been under constant criticism amid a rise in migrants entering the country illegally. Minister Bell spoke to the ongoing efforts of his ministry and the government in dealing with illegal migration.
As you are aware, persons who are held in our detention facilities are brought before the courts and are repatriated to their homelands as quickly as possible. Despite the volatile unrest in Haiti last week, we successfully repatriated all 375 persons who were in Inagua. Thus far for 2023, 570 persons were repatriated to their homelands during the month of January, the majority of whom were Cuba and Haiti. That is, 167 Cubans and 368 Haitian nationals. And this was done at a cost, Madam Speaker, of $68,768.17.
In 2022, repatriation flights total more than $1.5 million. Minister Bell notes that repatriation flights are ongoing, adding that 395 irregular migrants are currently detained at the Carmichael Road Detention Center.
Contrary to popular belief, we have 255 Cubans compared to 128 Haitian nationals there. 255 Cuban nationals compared to 128 Haitians there. And we have 14 women and children in our safe house. The cost of meals, Madam Speaker, for irregular migrants is presently $30 per day. Other subsidiary costs for accommodating irregular migrants include health care supplies, clothing, cleaning supplies, laundry services. Operating the detention center is a major undertaking. Nonetheless, the Department of Immigration continues to fulfill its mandate of protecting our borders, and that is done in combination with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
Minister Bell assures Bahamians that the Department of Immigration, along with its partners, the United States Coast Guard and Bahamian law enforcement agencies, are doing a tremendous job of intercepting irregular migrants as it protects the sovereignty of the Bahamas for future generations, despite the heavy financial costs. Following recent threats of death made against Prime Minister Philip Davis last week, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis on Monday telling reporters that Prime Minister Davis was overreacting with highly increased security. On Friday, the Office of the Prime Minister received 2 calls threatening the Prime Minister's life.
Sure, every Prime Minister would have been threatened at some point in time. I've never seen any taken security to this extent. Certainly I have not. When I've been threatened, I still went but my merry way and went into Baintown, the party, went into Masons, the party, went all over the place.
Dr. Minnis goes on to say that he had received multiple calls threatening his life during his term in office as Prime Minister. He goes on to say that he is under the view that there is nothing for Prime Minister Davis to fear.
When I was in the chair, I was threatened on multiple occasions, and of course, I didn't report it to my aides until last minute, after several attempts, several expression of wanting to kill me. And they said I needed to take it more serious, and then they subsequently reported to Commissioner of Police. I'm of the view that when a Prime Minister feels that he can no longer feel safe among his own people, that's time to go. That's time to go. So I've always carried on with my normal life. But this Prime Minister is obviously threatened by the people. He brought out the entire police force almost. I mean, what is there to fear?
Today, however, the Minister of National Security, Wayne Munroe, is disagreeing with Dr. Minnis. Before the weekly cabinet meeting, he suggested that no death threat should be taken lightly.
I don't know what he means. Anybody who makes a threat of death, it's investigated by the police, whether you're the Prime Minister or somebody from Camp Road. If someone threatens you with death and you make a complaint, the police will investigate it. There's a branch of the police who is concerned with the personal security of the Prime Minister, and no doubt they will take into account what is a threat level and adjust sufficiently. The Prime Minister made it clear that he's carrying on with business as usual, so I'm not quite sure what the former Prime Minister is talking about. The police will investigate all complaints of crime.
Minister Munroe goes on to say that all threats of death should be investigated regardless of who you are. He noted that Prime Minister Davis is not afraid and he is carrying on his business as usual. There is seemingly a double standard when it comes to following the law, as the Prime Minister and the government tells the public to obey the laws of the land, while they seemingly disobey laws they themselves agreed to in Parliament while in opposition. Well, this according to leader of the current opposition, Michael Pintard, who described during Monday's House session what he perceives as hypocrisy, particularly where it concerns the government not following the Public Procurement Act.
The Prime Minister, during the price control debacle, fostered by them because of their refusal to consult with the private sector, the Prime Minister admonished the public to follow the law. It's a favorite chorus of the Prime Minister. Secondly, when he was dealing with another group of stakeholders, once again, the Prime Minister and his colleagues, whether it's the pharmacists, everybody's compelled, follow the law. Just recently, while talking to insurers, the Prime Minister indicated that a part of why the government is doing what it's doing is because they fully expect that persons would be compliant with the law. And Madam Speaker, we agree, persons should be compliant with the law. But isn't it amazing that the very Prime Minister who's advocating for all and sundry to be compliant with the law has consistently led his team in violating the law? The
FNM leader continues by stating that even if the current Davis administration had plans on making adjustments to certain laws, it does not absolve them from following the laws that are currently in place.
Speaker, you don't get to decide that you will amend the law and later on you will then comply, but you're not going to comply today because you have intentions to change it. But Madam Speaker, that's what the member for Kent Island, Wamkin, St. Salvador and his team have done. They have held different people at different standard, but there's a different standard for the Progressive Liberal Party. The Procurement Act is one example. Their consistent lateness on providing a variety of financial reports. Again, the excuse is these were cumbersome pieces of legislation. They do not facilitate timely compliance, etc., etc. But the reality is, when these were being passed, they were here, and they were woke at the time they were here. They voted for all of these pieces of legislation. The member for Kent Island, Wamkin, St. Salvador, the member for Exuma, the member for Angliston, the member for they voted for them. So one does not vote then and then now come and say that we are not complying with it because there were complications.
Mr. Pintard underlined the importance of the act, stating that it binds the government to ensuring that budgets deal with particular deficits. He once again admonished the government for failing to deliver the fiscal budget strategy report in a timely manner, as it was almost 3 months late when it was supposed to be submitted in November of 2022. As police are unable to confirm the identity of the country's 14th homicide victim, they are appealing to members of the public, particularly family members who may not have seen a loved one or friend in the past 48 hours, to contact the police. As reported on Monday, a male believed to be in his early 20s was found on the ramp on South Beach on Sunday. Around 9:15 p.m., police were notified of gunshots being discharged in the area of South Beach, Blue Hill Road South. On arrival, officers discovered the lifeless body of a light-skinned male wearing a white t-shirt and black sweatpants with multiple gunshot wounds to the body. Officer in charge of the Criminal Investigation Department, Chief Superintendent Michael Johnson, told media at the time that the victim had no forms of identification on him, adding that he is not known to police. To assist, contact the Criminal Investigation Department at 502-9991 or 502-9992. And finally, in this segment, thanks to swift response by police officers, the culprits, prosecutors say, are responsible for the brazen daylight shooting in the area of Joe Farrington Road last week have been brought up on charges in connection with that incident. 20-year-old Deanza Gibson and 21-year-old DeAndre Morley both stood before Senior Magistrate Darrence Roll Davis, charged for the murder of 24-year-old Andre Major. The incident occurred shortly before noon on Tuesday, January 31st. Preliminary reports reveal that the victim was walking in the area of Joe Farrington Road and Fox Hill Road when he was chased, shot, and killed by the occupants of a white Nissan Note. The duo was not required to enter a plea and was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until April 12th, when they returned for a service of a voluntary bill of indictment. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.